NES Classic Edition review. I still feel genuine excitement whenever I reach the fourth world of Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, and that rush of adrenaline is a testament to the power of the great classic video games of the 1980s and early 90s. We know almost everything about them, but they can still entertain us almost 30 years later. Nintendo's tiny retro console is a wonderful reminder that the great 8-bit classics will never die. It comes preloaded with a great library of 30 mostly excellent games from the NES era, with headliners like The Legend of Zelda, Mega Man 2, and Dr. Mario for an attractive $59.99 USD, and its high-quality emulation wipes the floor with the Wii U's ugly NES Virtual Console. But, for all of its remarkable authenticity, the ridiculously short controller wires make it a pain to use. Right out of the box, the attention to detail on the NES Classic is impressive. The small, lightweight console weighs a mere 6 ounces and captures the boxy yet iconic look and feel of the original black and grey Nintendo Entertainment System, right down to the soft, clickable power and reset buttons. Almost every inch of it is exactly the way you remember it, only at a much smaller 5x4 by 1.6 inches. There are a few differences. The cartridge lid doesn't flip open, because all the games are permanently preloaded on internal storage, and it has an HDMI port and a USB micro power input on the back. But outside of that, this is a perfect miniature recreation of Nintendo's first home console as it appeared on its North American debut in 1985. The wired NES Classic controller, one is included, and you can buy another for $10, follows the same reverent attention to detail, but the D-pad feels much smoother and lighter than the uncomfortably hard plastic Nintendo used on the original. Otherwise, the controller dimensions are the same, just slightly lighter. But the catch here is that the controllers connect to the system using painfully short 2.5 feet cables, though the Wii accessory connector. There's a proprietary port, and Nintendo doesn't sell extension cables or wireless controllers. That means you either have to sit absurdly close to your television, purchase third-party extension cables for the controller, or invest in long HDMI and power extension cords. But the controller extension cables aren't a great option because you have to push the reset button to pop back to the home menu and choose another game, so the console has to be within reach if you want to save the state of your game or jump into a different one. Why aren't those buttons on the controller, and why isn't the controller wireless? There's no good answer for the first question, but it is true that wired controllers guarantee zero input lag when you're playing demanding games. But if I had to choose, I'd rather have a few milliseconds of lag than be forced to sit a few feet from my TV or have cords awkwardly stretched across my living room. The cable length is a painful inconvenience for the NES Classic. Editor's note: you can plug in a Wii Classic controller and the home button launch the home menu on the NES Classic Edition. Nintendo may have skimped on the cables, but it delivered on the NES Classic Edition's ability to emulate video games. The colorful worlds of these 30 classic NES games have never looked better on a modern television. Whether you're exploring the colorful and imaginative stages of Super Mario Bros. 2 or combing every corner of Hyrule for hidden secrets in The Legend of Zelda, this little console does a great job of displaying classic games on modern televisions. You can choose an original 4:3 aspect ratio mode that's crystal clear on 1080p TVs, an artificially fuzzy CRT mode, and pixel-perfect mode that gives a thinner, more modern look. The high-quality emulation from the NES Classic can stand toe-to-toe with much more expensive setups, like the Retron series of consoles. The biggest downside, though, is that the library of 30 games is all that this iteration of the NES Classic Edition will ever be able to play, because there's no way to buy and load new games. If you want to play, say, Ice Hockey or Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, you'll have to hope it's on a hypothetical NES Classic Edition too, at which point you'll have to buy a whole new console and swap out the hardware whenever you want to play. That said, at least library of games Nintendo picked for this collection is strong and stretches across several genres. The fact that the original Super Mario Bros. Trilogy is bundled with the first two Zelda games, Castlevania, Double Dragon 2, and Bubble Bobble would be reason alone to pick this up if you don't already own the lot of them on Virtual Console, and you still have 22 other games to choose from. A few games haven't aged all that well, like Metroid and Ice Climber, but they're in the minority relative to all the greats featured here. Every menu screen is also an elegant nod to the NES era, from the screensaver where Mario and Luigi fight for control of the screen to the custom menu screens that lovingly captures the original box art and 90s-style icons. The only thing missing is the original game manuals, which Nintendo says you can read online using a QR code found in the system menu. Outside of that omission, there's plenty of retro love tucked into the NES classic. The verdict. Put simply, modern warfare is no longer modern, though the combat and, in some ways, the action movie story at its foundation are ageless. Its level design and lack of campaign progression reveal its true age. But it's not outdated, it's classic, and the considerable effort that has gone into improving the models, textures, and effects have enhanced it enough that playing through the campaign again was rewarding. Multiplayer also benefits from the graphics upgrade, and its refreshingly old-school pace is fun and explosive in its own right. It might not have the same effect it did the first time around, but it works as both a great embodiment of what shooters used to be and one that still plays well.
Check out these other amazing videos. Subscribe to our channel. Don't forget like, comment and subscribe. Thank you so much. Subscribe now.